falling birth rates in every westernized country. Human births must be maintained at a 2.1 replacement rate for a population to remain steady. The birth rate in the United States currently stands at 1.86. Now, see, like right there, I know most people don't even understand what those numbers mean, because there should be an appalling gasp if you understand how low that figure is. And let me tell you something. That's nowhere near where Japan's is at. I don't even have the statistic handy right now, but it's nowhere near 1.8. That's eugenics. Clear and simple. I mean, as clear as a bell in my mind, because I know what these numbers mean. It's at 1.86 and rapidly falling. And people think there's overpopulation. No. Human beings are crowded like animals into farms called cities. That's what. There's no overpopulation on this planet. The rate has been in decline. This birth rate in the United States has been in decline year after year, not only in the United States, but in every single westernized, industrialized country, due to the success of the epi-eugenics agenda. And I predict that birth rates will continue to fall year over year, and the rate at which they will fall will continue to accelerate, because what these farmers are doing is they're culling the herd to make it easier to control. Look at these numbers. 1909, 127 births per 1,000 women. 1960, it dropped to 118. 2007, they've cut it in half within 100 years. Within a century, cut the birth rate in half. It's going to take 4 more generations. The population of every Western culture is going to be at 1/4 of where it is now. And then you want to see the control system take off and go into absolute crazed mode, you're going to see what happens when they can more easily control less people. Stands right now at about 63 births per 1,000 women and rapidly declining. One of the biggest parts of the neo-feminism agenda is misandry, the open hatred of men. The accelerating rise of radical neo-feminism is bringing with it open misandry, the overt display of hatred and contempt toward men based solely upon their gender. Misandry is a blatant form of prejudice and unwarranted discrimination that is sadly gaining more societal traction by the day. Men are constantly being portrayed as bumbling idiots in the media and television. More feminists are taking radical, militant stances when it comes to dealing with the opposite sex, even taking this gender war at times into the realm of bitter and hateful attacks upon children. I mean, look at this image that was put on a feminist forum. All the things that they wrote on this baby and then photographed. Pig, looter, arsonist, runaway, reckless, violent, rioter, criminal, hated, wife beater, sperm bank, dispensable, deadbeat, risk, alcoholic, thug, rapist, cash point. I mean, you have to be kidding. Writing this on a child, you know? And this isn't a problem going on in society. Let me tell you something. I have directly experienced misandry in my own life. You know, the way that I've been discriminated against has not been racially. You know, a lot of people experience racial division and racism. I could tell you anecdotes about how I have been accused of being a racist, you know, by someone who didn't even come close to understanding the symbols that I had on me, you know. I can get into that anecdote later, but I've experienced the most absolute bias and prejudice against me for being male during the course of my life, particularly recently, because this agenda is going into full swing. When I interact in society, when I go out socially with people, I do not initiate any force or aggression against anyone else. I'm about the most chill, peaceful guy you're going to come across. When I get up here and I talk about these issues, they fire me up a lot, because I have passion talking about the society of death and slavery that is presiding over humanity. Maybe that's something that should be upsetting us a little bit more. Okay? But, you know, when I interact with people, I interact according to the non-aggression principle. I don't bring aggression toward anybody, okay? And yet it continuously finds me when I interact with a lot of people in society, or when I even am trying not to interact with people, and I consistently see that for some reason, the hatred or the aggression is always coming from females. And I don't understand it. I can't personally understand it. The only thing I can conclude is that this is this rise of misandry in society because I look like a masculine man, okay? And just that air of masculinity is perceived as a threat when I do nothing threatening behavioral-wise. I'm sure other men in this room have experienced the same thing. So I see this personally. This isn't something I'm just researching and throwing out there conceptually. I've experienced it in my life. I'm telling you it's real. It's going on. More and more people are seeing it. Another thing that neo-feminism postulates is this notion called toxic masculinity. It seeks to abnormalize and demonize naturally masculine traits and behaviors. This manipulation tactic seeks to equate things like firearms ownership with being violent. See, they're tools of violence, not self-defense. Or a normal, healthy interest in sexual activity as sexual aggressiveness. Okay? Stripped of all its euphemisms, you know, you go into this whole catcalling thing that went viral on the internet. You know, men saying hi to a woman walk down the street. Oh, this is total abuse and, completely infringing on her rights to walk down the street so-called unaccosted when all the men were saying was hello and complimenting her. Stripped of all its euphemisms, this notion that is called toxic masculinity is just a way for neo-feminists to say that, quote, being a man is a bad thing. That's all it is. I mean, we should stop sugarcoating it, cut to the chase, start calling it what it really is. It's just a way for them to saying being a man is bad. That's all. You know, I mean, look at this image in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. I'll go back to it, of what a man is depicted as. A man having sex with a woman is depicted as a demon. A demon. This was on a feminist blog that I encountered. Okay? I mean, just imagine that. Saying, what, men are demons because they find women attractive? A totally normal masculine trait? I mean, these are the notions that are being propagated about normal human sexuality in our culture. And it's a real, very real and rising problem, folks. And we better start addressing it now. Because it's getting worse, not better. A couple of anecdotes I have. These are things that the neo-feminists say that men are doing. You know, man-spreading. How many people have heard of the term man-spreading? Much less than I would have thought, although I'll have to explain what it is to the bulk of people here. Man-spreading is this term that neo-feminists have invented for when men sit on a chair with their legs spread, their thighs spread, because they happen to have these things called testicles. Well, some of them do. Like on the subway. They actually have signs on the New York subway. Dude, stop the spread. It's a space issue. They can ticket for this in New York City. Cops can give tickets. What do they have, a ruler? They go around with a tape measure? Oh, that's 21 inches, sir. No, that's manspreading. We'll have to issue a citation. I mean, are you absolutely kidding me? I mean, the first time I ever heard of this term, Barb told it to me, okay? She was like, well, look at the stickers they're putting on the New York trains, the subway trains. And I look at it and it goes, stop manspreading. And it has a dude with his legs spread out. I'm like, oh, that's a funny joke. And she's like, no, it's not a joke, that's for real. I'm like, what? I'm like, seriously, that's for real. They're not just joking around. No, and they're going to start ticketing for it. They have started ticketing for it. Okay? Now, see, all this is to put the notion out there, men are oppressing women. Men are inconsiderate. You know, it's bad to be a man. They have inconsiderate attitudes. They have aggressive attitudes. You know, it has nothing to do with human anatomy. Okay? I'll tell you an anecdote. I'm in a band called The Founders. You might have seen me wearing the shirt earlier. Old school hardcore punk. But I went with a couple of members, actually two guitarists from my band, DJ and Mike, to see another band play at a local rock club in Philadelphia. And the show ended kind of early. And we were just sitting around. We grabbed a couple of beers. And there's a pool table in this club. And we were out near the exit of the building, sitting on the edge, like leaning on the edge of the pool table. Nobody was blocking exits. We're not like, you know, the type of burly guys that are going to go and start trouble with people randomly just to do it. You know, we mind our own business. We were sitting there discussing, you know, things about music and things going on in the world while we were drinking a beer. There was probably 100 people in the place, and the place started clearing out. So we were toward the exit. We just were sitting there. I'd say over 70, at least 50 to 75 people walked directly by us and went out the exit. One woman comes toward the exit and jars into my guitarist, Mike, who, you know, most people obviously don't know him. You might have seen pictures of him online on our Facebook page for the Founders. Mike is probably one of the thinner guys that I know. He's, you know, he's a tough dude, but he's a thin, like, he has a thin frame. You know, he doesn't weigh a whole lot, okay? He's, does not take up that much space, let's put it that way, okay? This guy was not blocking anybody's path by any stretch of any human being's imagination, okay? And as she slams her shoulder into him and almost makes his beer spill, she says, "Way to man spread, dude." Like really nastily and in a hostile tone of voice, as if he was trying to block her pathway out to the exit, when he wasn't even close to being anywhere in the aisle. Maybe his elbow was, if here was the pool table and here was the pathway to go to the exit, his elbow might have been out here like this as he was sipping his beer, okay? So trying to go out of her way to incite hostility, clearly one of these neo-feminists, okay? Not a classical feminist, which is about total equality between the genders in natural rights, okay? Not putting one gender above the other or anybody being in control over anybody else, but neo-feminism is about trying to invoke open hostility and a gender war between men and women. And he responded in his own hostile way, which I took no objection to, actually, because if somebody wants to start aggression and bitterness with somebody when there was none, I have no problem with somebody getting up in somebody's face and telling them it's an unacceptable behavior. None whatsoever. So it took me a minute to process what had just happened. I couldn't even believe it. You know, I was like, oh my God, I actually heard somebody use the term manspreading, and it took me, I had to do a triple take. You know, like, what did I just hear? And then it even became more absurd because it was Mike, and he's, you know, no way could he have possibly been even doing this, okay? So this is appropriate to the next slide, which is why I'm telling this. When he raised his voice to her, another guy nearby immediately stepped up like he was going to, you know, come to the damsel in distress's aid because, oh, this guy has raised his voice to a woman. How dare he say anything in any kind of a elevated tone to a female? And that's called the white knight, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. And that's when I stood up and just shot the white knight a look. Stay out of it. I didn't even say the words. I just looked at him and my eyes said, stay out of this. And that was it. And he stayed out of it and let them handle it amongst themselves. Okay? Because I have no problem with somebody stepping in and defending someone if they're truly in the right. No problem. That's called justice. I have no problem with that. Don't come in and step up like you're going to be the big bad guy and defend somebody who's clearly in the wrong. Then I have a big problem with it. And I guess my eyes communicated that to him readily. So the other topic is man-slamming. Now, this one has directly happened to me on 5 different occasions. I have experienced this in the streets of South Philadelphia now 5 times. How many people know what man-slamming is? Wow, only a couple of people in the whole room. Okay, I have to explain this one. Neo-feminists postulate this notion that men are completely inconsiderate of the pathway of women as they're walking on the street. Okay? And they think we're just going to keep going and keep walking and keep moving regardless of where a female happens to be walking and slam into them at every opportunity. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think anybody in this room deliberately walks down the street trying to do things like that, especially none of the men. I know I'm overly considerate when I'm watching people's pathway to see where they're going to walk and try to project that so to avoid a collision. Okay? Especially in the streets of South Philadelphia, which can get narrow in some places and busy in some places. Okay? Over the last, I'd say 3 months, 5 women have walked, and I mean, look, I think my perceptions are pretty good. I think I pay attention to my environment pretty well, okay? And I don't think that I invent things that are happening. And for the first couple of times, I thought maybe that was happening. Like, am I imagining this? Is this, like, really happening? Because what they're doing is almost playing a game of chicken with men and trying to make a man deliberately go out of his way to move so as to avoid a collision because they are going to not yield and just come right at a guy to slam into him as hard as possible, okay? Which I don't even understand why you would want to do that to another human being or to yourself. But again, this is rampantly out of control ego is what this is. To try to what? Prove a point? What? To say, what do we have to do now? Bow as you pass? Like, and go like that? Shall I curtsy? Shall I wear a skirt and curtsy as you pass? Okay? You know, we can't walk on the right side like traffic does on a street or highway and just pass each other politely and cordially anymore? No, apparently we can't due to this gender war. Okay? So, you know, and this happened a couple of times and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's my imagination. And then, no. After it happened a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th time, I'm like, this is a deliberate thing that's being done. They clearly have this idea in their head that I'm going to do this. And it's always young women. It's always women like 20 years old, 21 years old, college age. Okay, coming directly out of the social Marxist, communist-run schools, which we're going to talk about, that this agenda is an agenda of communism, in addition to being an agenda of Satanism. And they're hand in hand, folks. By the way, they got the same high holiday, don't you know? May 1st, Walpurgisnacht. Okay? That's not an accident. You think May 1st is the high holiday of communism and Satanism by accident? Yeah, keep believing that. So, man-slamming, okay? Deliberately walking into a man to try to prove he won't move for you. Now, this happened to me 5 times, and it was attempted a 6th. I carry some solidity. I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I have a low center of gravity, though. Ask my martial arts instructor if I'm strong. Okay? All I did was shift my weight a tiny bit and stood firm. That person won't be man-slamming anybody else because they bounced off of me like a rubber ball. And all I did was stand where I was. I didn't try to lay a shoulder in. I didn't raise an arm. You know, I just showed, we want to play that game, we'll play it. and you'll lose, but I'll play, you know, and, you know, we'll see where your ego goes if you fall over into the street, you know, and that's, you know, it's a risky game to play. You know, you fall on concrete, you hit your head, you know, dangerous stuff can result. Even doing aggressions like that just to prove a point is a stupid idea. Okay? So, you know, I just stood my ground on this one time, and when she went bouncing off, I just went, oh, sorry about that, and kept moving on my way. Like as if, you know, oh, that was clearly an accident, right? When we both knew it wasn't.